That's, we are.
Okay, it's only a minute or so. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Just as you come in.
We are
yes.
We're early. We're early for us. Look at that.
A little bit early, but that's fine. I'm sure people won't mind.
Let me just grab a coffee. It's going to be a lively debate.
It will be a lively debate. You know, there's a lot to talk about today. Equity modeling, all the different tangles that you can get when you're trying to equity model. And of course, this isn't an exact science, so there will be a number of different views on how to handle this and the sort of approach you can take and the results that you're going to get. So if you're just joining, welcome. We are going to be looking at equity modeling today and all the difficulties and the decisions that you face as you enter this tricky area, and of course, all the new tenures. Right, so we've got 20 people so far. I've just got a few minutes.
Chris, don't big it up too much. Come on, it's going to keep it. We're going to keep it simple.
I'm sorry,
you're going to challenge me.
No idea what they're talking about.
Yeah, I've got people here to challenge me. You know, Paul's going to be the biggest challenge. You don't do it.
We're looking, yes, absolutely. Well, we've already got a disruptor, Paul Christensen.
Joined just to.
Yes. So if you're just joining us, good morning and welcome. We're in historic times. We've got a heat wave yesterday, which was the hottest record ever. Fires everywhere. We won't talk about that though. No, that's an absolute nightmare, not worth laughing about. I don't know why I'm laughing here. So joining us today is Andrew Markham. Andrew is the head of our consultancy. We also have John Stevens, one of our star consultants, and we have Paul Christensen, who is one of our technical experts. Paul is a huge expert in SQL and also ProVal, and every single person here does a lot of equity modeling and has very strong views. There will be disagreements, and we hope that the audience also come in with theirs. So this is a lively debate. We're hoping there's a chat section, there's a question and answer section. You can like and upvote other questions. So please do, be interactive and, like and vote and let us know what you're thinking, because that's the whole purpose of today, is to really get into this conversation and just try and understand what the difference is. So it's a really great turnout. I can see some familiar faces there. One little thing I should say is this is going to be my last webinar with SDS. I am leaving SDS to pastures new. It was a very upset. Well, it was a very difficult decision, and it's been 4 really great years with SDS, and I've learned so much about housing, and it's been such a pleasure to work with the housing associations and local authorities. So yeah, that's a bit. I'm not sure what's going to happen with webinars moving forward, but there's a huge amount of talent here, and I have no doubt that they will continue. Right, okay, well, it looks like we're peaking at the moment in terms of attendees. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over to John Stevens, and John's going to take us through a lot of the strategy when it comes to looking at tenures and the sort of new tenures available. And as I said, feel free to, this is meant to be conversational. So away to you, John.
Okay, right. I'll just organize that I'm sharing a screen. There we go. And grief. There we go. So what I'm presenting to you is very simplistic, but basically understanding that we apply different unit types from a library when we're using our ProVal software. And what we're going to talk about today is what's in that library and how the different tenures are being used. Predominantly sale tenures with different percentages being sold, whether it's shared ownership, rent to buy, or whatever. I do a lot of work with people's assumptions in organizations and review their assumptions for them against their competitors. And time and time again, I get people referring to templates as where our development assumptions are. But of course, there's a lot of assumptions in the unit library about what percentage is being sold and also what management and maintenance allowance is. And they are attached in the library of unit types, not on the templates. The templates have things like interest rates, inflation and your fees, but your management and maintenance allowances and percentage sale are attached to the unit types. So when we're looking at new tenures coming into the sector, like first homes, rent to home buy, etc., we need to be adding to our unit library as much as looking at our template information. So it's important that we look at our unit library, and that's the point I wanted to make from this slide. New dwelling types. Well, I've come up with this term butterfly tenures specifically for those tenures that move from being a caterpillar to a butterfly. It starts out as one thing and becomes something else. A real example of this is rent to home buy, that starts out as a rented product. People talk about intermediate rent or affordable rent. We now, yes, laugh at the term affordable rent a little bit. Maybe we talk about intermediate rent. It's where a product starts out as an intermediate rent or affordable rent product and transitions to become that beautiful butterfly, which is shared ownership tenure. So it starts out as one thing and becomes something else. And when it starts out as one thing, it might need some management and maintenance, and then it transfers to become this butterfly that may have less maintenance attached to it. And I'm sure Andrew and Paul are going to talk about how we establish that change from being in management to maybe having less costs as it becomes a shared ownership product. But these sort of butterfly tenures are happening more and more, where there's periods of time, for example, in the new version of shared ownership, where we have to apply 10 years of responsive repairs to it. And after year 10, it has to be self-sufficient, and that responsive repair cost disappears from the ProVal appraisal as it becomes the shared ownership butterfly without the maintenance support. So maybe there are these butterfly tenures that we need to talk about in ProVal. So one of these new tenures, and it doesn't really transition a great deal, so it's probably not a full-on butterfly, but one of the new tenures we need to look at is first homes. First homes, well, there's a lot of talk about it, and the house builders we're working with actually not overly keen on it. They'd much rather get the money from the housing associations than deal with a discounted market sale, which is basically what it is. And it's going to be required on large sites, and there's going to be determination by the planning authority. They've got the ability to actually determine who it's for, so they can actually have local connection criteria or local performance criteria. The housing developer takes the discount hit, or basically the reduction on sale price, as part of the affordable provision. And it's going to be at least 25% of the affordable housing required on large sites. And we know that the discount is in perpetuity, so it's kept on the land registry title, and the eligibility of the purchaser is going to be subject to the local authority or local planning authority criteria. So they can be quite specific. The discount is going to be around 30% on open market sales, subject to local planning authority criteria. And there are price caps at the moment for the first sale. There you can see up to 420,000 in Greater London and 250,000 outside Greater London. Eligibility, first time buyer, income levels inside and outside London. You have to have a mortgage plan to fund a minimum of 50% of the discounted price. And there is a mortgage exclusion clause for lenders. I'm not going to go through too much of this in, well, it looks like I am going to go through too much of this in detail, but basically the local authority have the ability to put discretion into what the discount is based on evidence. I've got some questions coming in from customers about how do we apply first homes. Well, basically, we don't really know until they're actively being used, and there's quite a lot of pressure being put on the planning authority of your local authority to come up with the rules as they get closer to putting one of these schemes together. So we've got local connection tests potentially that could be in place. So these homes are going to be sold potentially, or could be, to a locally defined key worker. And what's the definition for that? Any person who works in a profession considered essential for the functioning of a local area. So that's pretty wide.
Yeah, a supermarket as well, isn't it?
Yeah. How do you define a key worker in a local area? Yeah. Something that's recently come out is that you can only let your first home for a total of 2 years. So they're kind of putting a restriction on subletting on first homes, because if you put these eligibility criteria in, it's that somebody somewhere has to police this in terms of who's occupying, who's qualifying, who's eligible to take up, especially if you're putting a limited criteria into who can purchase it. Who's policing this? So what's the time scale on these first homes? Certainly a lot of housing associations we're working with who want to be the developer of the whole site, not just the affordable element, are having to consider first homes because they are developing the whole site. And so they will be doing some first homes as part of their affordable provision as developer of the whole site. But this is flowing through the planning process on significant sites. So I'll be keen to get some feedback from customers who is engaging now with first homes and what sort of eligibility criteria are they. And I would be very interested to know if there's a sort of a cascade of eligibility in the same way we saw a cascade being used by planning authorities for rural housing, where they're very specific at the start, but if they can't find anybody eligible under that very strict criteria, it then cascades down a level to perhaps people living in the next few towns, and then it cascades out to the wider region, and the eligibility opens up and opens up. And I'll be interested to know if that sort of cascade approach can be applied to first homes and whether any planning authority has come up with that yet. So there is an exemption for sites, but basically the government want to see this come through. And record keeping, I'm really interested to know who's going to keep the records on the sale, the eligibility and the audit, who it was sold to, how did they conform to the eligibility criteria. And also an interesting piece of information, you can leave a first home to someone in your will once you bought it, but if they don't comply with the rules for owning, then they must sell the home. That's recently in government guidance. So it's quite, you have to get into the detail sometimes and look at the government guidance when these new tenures emerge. What I will share with you is actually this website. And if you go on this website, there is a portal to all the new tenures that are being discussed. And I found it very valuable as an introduction to the different government schemes, including things like the self-build register. If you go on the link that actually has all, if I escape from here and actually show you the link as it's live, and I go back to the start, it is supposed to be conversational, this, isn't it?
We're listening in good.
You are dominating the conversation. Yeah. It's fine.
Okay, all right. If you go on that link, my piece of guidance to you is it opens up with this page where it basically shows you the top 4 elements that the government would like to put in front of you. But my top tip is to actually go to looking for a different scheme, because if you click on that, it will actually open up a 3-page site that actually shows all the available options under government funding for different methods of getting your own home, including the shared ownership register, older persons shared ownership, etc. So it's got all the detail. Well, it's an entry point, and then you can actually click on the links, including for Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland, and it will take you to the relevant government pages for each of these types. So for my, as a practitioner, this is a good starting point to find the route to all these different things that are actually happening. So I would thoroughly recommend that as a starting point in terms of looking at these different tenures. So if I jump back to my presentation and yeah, so this link with all schemes at the end of it will take you into those 3 pages with all the different schemes on it. And I want to talk about very quickly what I've come across with customers as little tips and hints to help you guys, you ProVal guys out there, is service charges. This is a quick little win, a little nugget of information. If we look at the shared ownership model lease, it actually talks about including management in the service cost. So this is a bit of an anorak point, really. But when you think of putting in your management cost in ProVal, when you get to shared ownership tenure, if we move our management cost from the management row in ProVal and put it in service cost, it actually is doing what the government wants us to do in the lease, but it also improves the NPV of that tenure, because by moving shared ownership management to service cost, we are deducting less from the rent, from the gross rent, and it will improve the NPV. And that's pretty much it, really, from me. So that is a nugget of information. Wow. Yeah,
that's great. Thank you, John. Any questions? Want to weigh in from the audience? Andrew, comments, please.
Yeah, comment. Have you actually seen any clients doing that yet, John, or do they realise?
Yes.
You have? Okay. All right. Okay. So we can, in a minute, we can model that. Paul's got a thumbs up, I think.
Paul has as well.
So that's good. All right.
Okay.
So
John, would you mind copying that link to the comments so people can click straight onto it? Just
yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. I'll stop sharing and endeavour to do that. Okay.
Thank you.
Right.
Right. So Andrew, over to you. We're going to now actually go into ProVal and have a look at some of this.
Yeah. Have we got kind of any comments that anyone's kind of made before?
Oh, they are being very quiet this morning. They're not going to make it easy for me, this last one. But yeah.
Paul, got any comments on that? What you hear as a attendee?
Other than John, I think there's a typo in the link. It's own your homes, not own your own home.
Yep, I will address that now. I do apologise. In my enthusiasm to own my own home. Yeah.
Sorry to correct you in the middle of something. It's just people won't get there if they use what's in front of them.
I've got some hands up. Okay, so we're gonna go. I'm not sure who went first here, but first I'm gonna go to Anna Shepherd. Anna, you can talk now if you'd like to chime in.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
It's really weird because I can see you, but I can't see anybody else or anything. I'm not used to Zoom. I normally do Teams. I just wanted to ask if the PowerPoint slides that John's just done is going to be available to everybody on this, because they're really useful.
Small fee. Yeah, small fee. We can negotiate that, Anna.
I'll send them as follow-up, Anna.
Also, so I'm Cornwall. I'm in Cornwall. So the affordable housing team down here has started to do the first homes. I haven't done any on my site at the moment, but I think we're following the same criteria that you would get with the local lettings plan in the section 106s. So we have we're still having the parishes. I think I haven't used it yet, so we'll see.
That's good to hear that there's some sort of cascade happening, you know, which is good practice, really, I would suggest to any other providers out there. Yeah.
Have you modelled it and can you make it work?
I haven't modelled it yet. So I actually haven't got access to ProVal yet. So I've just moved jobs, so I will do. But no, in my last place of work, it had just started to come in. So I hadn't had any recent planning applications that would have kicked in with this. So I guess in the next 12 months, I'll be putting this in.
Okay, cool.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Anna. We appreciate your contribution.
Thanks.
And we will move on to the next. And Colin Ryan, welcome. You should be live and able to speak now. Hello, Colin. Okay, Colin's having some difficulties there. So I'm going to read out, Colin, if you try and sort of select your microphone, you might be using the wrong one in the top right corner. I'm going to read out this question from James Bladen in the meantime. Presumably, for shared ownership management costs, specific management of the building can be recharged, but the landlord will still have some costs, e.g. rent setting.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll put up the content from the capital funding guide and the new model lease of shared ownership, which I've spoken to several people, and they say that all the management costs look like they should be included in a specific service cost stroke charge. So moving it from the management row in ProVal to the service cost, like I say, appears to be in line with the lease and the capital funding guide, and it will improve the NPV on your shared ownership, because usually service cost is met by service charge. That's the way most people look at it. So I'm happy to put those links up, and I'll put an amended link to your own home as well, as pointed out by Paul.
Okay, should we model that then? Should we kind of look, whilst we're talking about shared ownership, I've got it on screen. Okay, so I've got 3 units, three columns, and just one. And I think it's always good when you're modeling, just do 1 unit. So you can get clarity of the numbers and where they hit the cash flow and the detail. Now I'm using the latest version of ProVal, and I would encourage you to kind of move to that. If you're not, you can always check the latest version by looking at the top here and speaking to your key contact, etc., about setting it up. So I've just kind of loaded these in. I've not called them, any description apart from a house and shared ownership, whatever square meterage, but a reasonable amount. And I've done I'm in Guildford, so I've kind of done some lower price on this one than I was kind of doing. So let me just change that. I was doing 525, wasn't I? When I was doing it on another scheme. So let me just kind of do this. 525, yeah. So, we're talking about, mixed tenure, and you must understand the process of where this is hitting the cash flow. And one of the triggers of where that is going to be the offsetting from first handover. So in the milestone sections, you would always put in what your rough understanding is of the time of doing an appraisal, and then you can see that date coming through. And then if you've got any timings or different tenures wanting to complete at different points, is you can offset it. So you can then say this one's going to be 2 months later and this one's going to be 3 months later, and you can see the dates changing underneath. So that's obviously when you're doing. Oh, thanks Paul for joining us. You got busy. When you've got different tenures on a larger scheme, you might have them kind of coming over at different points. John, are you going to kind of comment on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to put in a simple observation from users. If you open that up again for me, where you had current market value, I think just a little nugget of information is this value is basically on the day that you sell it, the day it's completed and sold. Yeah. And very often people are putting in dates that they consider what is the value now. And you've actually got to think, am I projecting a future value onto this? Because this is the value that it sells at.
That's an interesting one though, isn't it, John?
Yeah.
Now, I would say in viability of being a land buyer, being out there and doing appraisals, you appraise on today's value. I
think that's an important point, just to say that you can't crystal ball gaze future growth. Yeah. But the value you are putting in here is the expectation that you're looking to get from the sale when it's sold. We're in line. So we're in line there. So absolutely, whatever's happening to the market, whatever's happening to the economy, and what's affecting that is what you know now today. So whatever you know today, do not forward value any market sales values. It's bad practice, and you won't be in business that long if you do it, I would imagine. So that's our value. The other part that John was talking about, obviously we've got our MPV, we've got the settings of that, and in this new model you've got an additional setting in there
which now, because we've gone to a single cash flow, let's not confuse it really, but it's basically just joining the development cash flow and the long-term cash flow in one view. So seamlessly we can transfer products or units to the correct month and create the right calculations for that going forward. So you have additional parts saying you can then, if your finance team want to see it at different points, you can do. Let's keep it as simple as that. But remember, the discount rate, discount period is all set, you know, hopefully in your development strategy, and you've kind of questioned it about your finance team, you reviewed what's happening in the sector, and you've got a robust understanding of that. But it is all about risk. How risky is these units, these products that you're doing? And the risk value is what you're putting in to your appraisals. If anyone's any questions on that, please chip in. So the part that we were talking about with this old versus new position, and can we model that in ProVal? Well, I've got an example in here, and my colleagues can point out if there's anything that they can see of difference they would suggest, but I've got a 10% in one column, I've got a 25% in another, and a 10% in here. And this one here is mirroring the column A, but showing the difference of the management costs within it. Yeah. So you've got the value, we can see that. So you can see the value that we're projecting. We've got another handover date. Yeah, in the sector, it's not something I kind of personally like, but you have a ability to delay, you know, that position of handover to ready to sale. You know, I don't think that should be something you should really consider. We want them as soon as they're built, we want them on the market, we want to be marketing them and not kind of further delaying. But we do have it in the system, and it seems clients do use that. We have obviously the ability to then project what we think is going to happen to our sales profile. So we don't want to just all lump these on in 1 month. If we're doing a number of units, we want to have a look at what the market appraisal is showing us. And that's not the financial appraisal, that's a market appraisal of what's happening in the sector or the area that we're developing this, how many units are coming to the market, and can we kind of look at something that is a bit more smoother in our cash flow. So we can then delay the sales per month. So we might do 1 a month, 2 a month, or 1.5 a month. And we can then smooth that so we can then get a better understanding on our cash flow going forward. And then we have the staircasing. So we've got obviously the new product, 10%. And then we've got from year 2, not obviously year 1, because we sold 10%. So the following year, year 2, we're going to start selling 1%. So 1% up to 15 years, which is 16 years, we're going to go up to 25%. Okay, so that's what we've done in here. So we can limit the amount of is to be sold, and then we can, next to it, we can do the 25% and no staircasing, because we are hopefully going to sell 25% or the traditional 35% on average across your schemes. So that is all correct. Panel agree? This is where I'll get a comment from Paul. Come on, Paul. Come on. That looks good, doesn't it? Yeah. Happy? Can I have a thumbs up?
Sorry, I was trying to figure out how to switch the microphone on again. You need to remember, everybody, that when you're working out your staircasing from 1 year to another, it's how many events do you want? So Andrew, you've put there from 2 to 16, so that's 15 events. So effectively it's 15 1% steps, which is in line with the guidance. Would people staircase from year 2? I think that's open to discussion. The software now will not allow you to staircase from year 1, because obviously you have to do due diligence on the person buying, and if they can afford to buy more, they have to buy more. So it's about there is a lot of other things other than the financial appraisal. One has to remember that the ProVal is a financial tool. You've got other caveats and covenants and all sorts of things that you have to deal with, which is what John was alluding to.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great. So we've got that in there. And the other point that we were discussing is about these additional costs, our management costs. So traditionally on ProVal, we've got our management line under our rent allowances. and you can see here that I've kind of split this for a period of time. If you felt that you were kind of, well, let's open this up to the guys here. Would you see what I'm modeling here as the correct way, or would you say that we are managing it more to one product to another, so that we should have more management costs or not? Oh, I know what I've done now. I remember why I've done this. John, Paul?
People need to just remember this is the starting cost. So in the inflation section, in section B,
Oh, yeah.
will inflate going forward.
Yeah.
And I think that's on the tip of everybody's thought processes at the moment, with inflation rampant as it is. So these 150 is in year 10. I'm for the first 10 years I'm going to apply 150, but in actual fact from year 1 it would have inflation.
Yeah, added onto it. This is your cost, and then we're going to inflate it.
And the way that ProVal works, Andrew, is split it to year 11. In other words, it is as though it started in year 1, but I'm going to ignore the first 10 years. That's how ProVal functions.
Yeah. So the modelling I've done here is one within the 150 rough cost that we're going to say that it's looking after us. We're doing exactly the same on the 25%, but I'm taking it off for the one that John was explaining by saying we're going to put that into our service cost. Okay. So the management cost is in there. I can leave that open if you want to. The maintenance cost is here. So we're showing the new maintenance cost of £500 for 1 to 10 years, and I'm applying that to all products, because I believe in the new lease you'll be doing it to all products for 10 years, and I've applied the same on this unit over here. Yeah, happy with that, guys?
Yeah, I have seen some customers saying I won't put it in for year 1 because I'm under a defects agreement. I have seen that level of detail. So
you could go, what, 1 to 1 there, and then go 1 to 10, 11 there. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying 1 to 1 at 0 cost because I've got defects cover.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
And then 2 to 10 is the 500.
Wouldn't it be 10 years that you are looking after it, not how would that, is that
you've got to look in the detail, haven't you?
Right.
You've got to go and look in the detail and say, am I just looking after it for the first 10 years of its life? Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. So like this.
And I have seen some customers do that. Yeah.
Now the difficulty, I suppose, with me obviously playing around with this is generally these things would be locked, wouldn't they? Your administrator would normally set these costs up as a standard, and they're presented for you.
So these are normally set at board approved level, aren't they? So
yeah.
Yeah.
So this modelling is kind of essential to do on a outside of normal practice as such, into a folder that's test or something like that, and then modelling kind of one unit to see the impact of the MPV and where and what that would look like when you're doing it. Yeah. This
is usually done by a senior member or the administrator to decide how things are going to interpret what the board have wanted.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good kind of practice to kind of break it down and see the elements of that. Okay, so service cost. So on this one, we're saying the service costs of the management. So the management cost is gone into the service cost, which is cost neutral. So we're keeping it out of the appraisal. Yeah.
Yep.
Is that how you model it with the client? Yeah. Okay.
Yes. No, I would actually put it in and then add it as a charge.
Well, I would show it. I would show it.
Okay.
Because and this is where we get conversational. That basically, if we show it, then you're putting in 650 there instead of it being 150.
Yeah, because if the whole service cost is 500, say, for all the units, and then the additional is 150 for the management cost, I'm induced.
You need to do the others then, Andrew, as well.
Yeah.
So
no, and Andrew, I would just put 150 in that column C.
It's a demonstration, so.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
Take it
zero there.
Column A and column B.
I'm with you.
Also put it in at year 11 to 100 as well. In column C.
Yeah, brilliant.
Don't forget to use the user comments to show people can see why.
Yeah.
So Andrew, highlight it again. So this is good for everybody. So if you highlight the £150 and then goes down to user comments,
Yeah.
and then type in there why you've done it.
Yeah.
So
This is very useful, and I use this a lot, and so do my customers that I deal with. If you're doing something that's out of the ordinary, then put it in so that you can see it.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. So we've got that in there. And now we're going to the normal position of obviously our rents. And we're now going to show our 2.75 of the unsold equity. Have you seen any clients going to go to any different than that position of 3%?
Yep. Capital Funding Guide says you can go up to 3%, but Homes England say they prefer 2.75. So it depends who you want to please. Also, I've seen boards go lower for affordability reasons.
I've seen that a lot.
Lower percentages.
Particularly in high cost areas like London, London centric, city centric, they go down and they go by size as well. So a 2-bed unit will be 2% and a 3-bed unit will be 1.5%. I've seen that kind of step happen.
So if we're doing that, then do we need to do the rents over the first 10 years? Because of that service cost, or are you just going to do it at one position across the whole part? Yeah, okay. You'd only split it if you're doing different tenures and you've got different, options and that. But obviously, you've got the position. You can change the 2.75 to 2.8 or 3.
You could have different steps over the 100 years, but basically, if you're kind of going down the Homes England route of 2.75 unsold equity, just put it in as 1 to 100 at 2.75, unless your board wants steps over that 100 years, really.
Okay.
That would be unusual, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just seeing what we're modeling now. So we go down to the service income. Yeah. So have we got the ticks in the right position?
Yes.
Yes.
So we're ticking them. Service charges always equals the cost at the top.
Yeah.
And already included in your rent? No. So we are then showing what that value is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Happy with that?
It's different because you've got inflation happening on service charges over time.
Yeah, absolutely. So the service charge is X and then inflation going in. So you can see that position. It's read only. It's coming from a calculation that is in there. Okay, good. Right. So we've got a information in there for that. I've taken some standard, maybe kind of low on the kind of land acquisition of 20%. So just put some cost in here. We've got a works cost, and I've got some infrastructure costs. Actually, I'll play around with that and say it's roughly 7,500 per unit, not 7. Okay, that's quite a good point. And then I can come down and I've got square meter by £2,000 a square meter for these units. So I've just got some figures in here. Doesn't really matter what they are, apart from about industry average, and 15% on fees. Yeah, fees are going up, aren't they? Everything's
bit high, but there we go. Yeah.
Oh, come on. And then we've got some contingency, 5%. You've got contingency on your fees. So we've got some kind of good bit of information in there of standard. And we will then go to the subsidy. I think I've put some money in for subsidy. What would be quite nice is actually take it out. I always like subsidy taken out. And we can see the pure position of this. And so the point we're not going to worry about inflation. It's a standard inflation thing. And we can then look at the results. So I'm going to then look at not the scheme results, but unit results, because I've broken everything down by one unit. And I can see the impact of the MPV of those different products. So here, as John was saying, if I can open that section, obviously, I can look at the settings that we've got. But the most important thing that I want to look at is the NPV position, which if I close it again, which will be that. So you can see the 112 against 116. And this is the impact of that management costs going into the service cost. And then you can see here the old version. Actually, the new version on this model is better than the old. I'm not sure that's reflective of the industry, but that is what this example has come out to. And I should note that obviously I'm using the new version of ProVal. So what we have is a greater degree of scrutiny in the cash flow, in the long-term cash flow, and the section of the development cash flow. So here is that if clients haven't seen it, and it's a really good improvement, especially if you're in the detail of modeling, that we can break things down now by, this would always used to be an annual position and all the calculations in the background, but now we can actually look at it quarterly and kind of monthly, so you can really see when these revenue is hitting the cash flow in detail. And we also copy this, didn't we, Paul, John, when we're doing appraisals from clients that have had Excel before and we're copying it into ProVal, that we could copy it back into Excel and have a look at the actual income on a month by month basis on tenure or unit. You have that information here now for you, so you can quickly open the different tenures in the long-term cash flow, and you can then break it down to the tenure. So I've only got one tenure in here, shared ownership, but I could go to my house type A and I could just see that information being displayed in the cash flow. So you can really get into the detail. Maybe your finance team will like this, but you can really get into the quarterly position of when that is actually hitting the cash flow in August 24. Yeah.
I think the explanation that I would give to people is we can now show a cash flow right from cash flow start, one continuous cash flow all the way through to the end of 100 years. Whereas previously we were just looking at a development cash flow, and then we were starting the long-term management cash flow. And it's because more commercial minded people have come into the affordable sector and they're saying, why have you got two cash flows? It's all one long financial cash flow for us as an organization. And yeah, it's a step change in how the sector is working to actually say all expenditure is shown in one long cash flow. We have put in the flexibility for you to put it back to a development cash flow and a management cash flow. But a lot of people have been asking us for this single cash flow model because it aligns with financial practice. So I'll just put that out there.
Good. And Chris, ask if there's any questions on what we just showed there.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah. So based on everything that you've seen, I'm talking to the audience now. Would you like to sort of understand anything further? Is there anything that we've spoken about that maybe doesn't chime with you, or maybe we should go over again, or that's confusing? And also, we'd love to understand how you're approaching this. So, please do sort of let us know on that. Obviously, the single cash flow is something that we put a huge amount of resource and effort to get to so that we can have these better results. And it has taken a huge amount of time and cost. How long have we been working on that now? 1 year?
Yeah, over that.
Over a year? Yeah, so that's actually why the cloud, that's why I know we're all very, very keen to get to cloud, but sorting out the single cash flow, which has taken a huge amount of time, was the priority before we get to cloud for very good reason, I guess.
One thing I want to do now is show what I would kind of consider, I think, a good practice to think about if you're doing sales units. And we talked about first homes. We've talked about houses, outright sale units. So if one of the questions come in about shared ownership and bits and pieces, and any questions on that and modeling it, please put your questions in. And I'm just going to show you something that I get asked quite a lot. I think we get asked quite a lot when modeling outright sale units or a discounted one. So I've got that here. So I've got an outright sale. It doesn't matter what the size of it. It's X square meters. It's an outright sale unit. It's all about value. Okay, so here I've got those units. One's first homes, 500, 550, different sizes of square meterage. Again, you've got the kind of impact of when you want that to hit the cash flow and timing that. It's obviously, we're not really interested in the MPV position because it's an in and out of that. So the sales and staircasing is more important. So here is where you can set the percentage you want to sell. But we were discussing this earlier. So it's okay for outright sale. That's kind of pretty easy, you know, to do this because it's 100%. But if you're doing a first homes, you're discounting it by a percentage discount, 30%, up to 30%, I think John was saying. So 70%. And then you've got the value. Now, in terms of modeling this, you just have to be a little bit careful about this actual sales value. It hits the cash flow, but what's quite nice is what Paul was suggesting when we were talking before we came online, is that some people want to show that discount higher up. So here is the market value. You might show what the discount is in a separate question. So you can introduce a question to ProVal and say the discount, the market value is X, and then this show what ProVal is taking forward into the cash flow. Is that right, Paul?
Yes.
So you might, you know, you need an admin rights to do that, but you have the ability to obviously add questions into it. I'm not going to do it, but we will help you on that if you get stuck. But you can introduce a question, and may be good for first home to say that is the market value, the discounted value is coming into here, and then you're modeling it like 100%. So this position is not discounted. Just away. John, have you got a view on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are actually looking at first homes and saying it's a discounted market sale. Yeah. Therefore, I'll look at it like a shared ownership without any rent.
Yeah.
And that's basically what you're doing here, isn't it? In terms of
the issue I have on this is that what profit, what gross margin are you going to put to that product? Because you're not going to build it and lose money on it, surely. Me going from my private sector days, I'm kind of
there's no profit on the first homes because effectively you're giving up the profit to do the discounted value.
What? So you're going to make sure that it's going to cover its costs?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have thought. Well, there's no point in doing it otherwise.
So you are taking the hit on the full market value as the developer. Yeah. So because you're getting your planning permission to do this scheme because you are providing first homes. No one actually ends up with that discount value wise because it's an in perpetuity tenure.
Sure. I get it. So, but the risk is the sales value you're doing it. That's not fixed.
It will be done by valuation, won't it?
Yes. But at the time of modeling, that you are putting in a value you think this is going to be, what risk element are you putting towards that? And you must have a buffer in your construction costs to say that we need a buffer to sell this product at a discount that we're still going to cover our costs.
Yeah, you're starting to talk as a commercial developer, a private developer looking at the whole site, and you're looking at your tenures as you put them together in an appraisal and saying, I must achieve, I don't know, a 15% or 20% profit margin. Yeah. And quite simply, you could actually put that in as a cost.
Well, that's what I was going to show. So this is
in the feed section.
Yeah. So this is how I would do it to make sure it works across the scheme. So, okay, outright sale is more clearer. We've got that unit in here, same structure as we had before. You know, we don't have to worry about kind of the allowance, the cost of it, the rent. I've got the same structure as in my capital cost for acquisition. So I've got a reasonable market position of 30%, you know, depending where you are, but I've got a percentage of the market sales value or OMV. So that's a reasonable position to take. I've got our works cost that's coming in, a bit of infrastructure, and then we've got some kind of square meter price, whatever that square meter price is, to show you what it is. And that's quite nice modeling to see where our kind of averages come out on. But this is the bit that we've got our fees, obviously, as we said before. But this is the bit that John was talking about, where I would put this into the system. So I'm forcing a value into ProVal because I want to achieve that. But it's not always about profit. It's about risk. It's understanding the risk of that value that I'm putting in my market assessment of the value of that property now. So here is, we call that gross margin. And gross margin means a number of things to companies or organizations. So it could include profit. It can include, obviously, risk, interest, and corporate costs. So there's a number of breakdown of that gross margin position, but essentially it's a percentage against OMV, or market sales value. And then across the sector, one would expect to achieve in housing associations or RPs, between 15 and 20%, something in that region, 10 to 20%, John. And then I'm forcing it to only look at the products or units that I want that risk element to be in. Yeah, so the outright sale is a value of 82,000, but then I must think about how this is hitting the cash flow. I don't want it to hit, because it's effectively a cost that's going into the cash flow. So I must time it correctly. So therefore I can time it in the new version. You can time things next to the cost, which is a kind of nice little improvement that we've done. And you could then say, well, it's going to be 100%, and I'm going to do it at either first sale or PC. So I've moved that cost further down. So it's not going to screw the interest on the development cash flow. Fraudulent error there. So you can do that. Go out of the bank, Chris. So you can do that. So that's how I would model it. And similar, if you're not going to do it in the first homes, or you just want to cover some risk profile because of that sales value, then obviously we can reduce it to a percentage that that is moving.
Paul, go ahead.
Can I share for a moment, please, Andrew?
Paul, we don't want to overcomplicate things.
No, just can I share for a moment?
Paul, you can share.
Paul, you can share.
Thank you.
Have we got any questions, Chris?
We have one question from Paul, and he's currently sharing.
Okay, Andrew's quite eloquently talked about the issue of first homes. I just wanted to show you what can be done. If you want to decide, there are some that think a first home is effectively a shared ownership with no rent, and it has a 70% sale or 60, 80% or whatever it is from that point of view. Or you could reflect in your appraisal that in actual fact it is an outright sale at a discounted value. I just wanted to show everybody that you can then put an extra question in here as an example that I've got on the screen before you. So I've got my current market value before discount at 200,000 and at 300,000 on two different units. I then put a formula into my current market value, because the current market value question is the one that ProVal uses. And in there, I put it's equal to my specialized question multiplied by 0.7% or 0.8 or whatever it is that you choose to. So I've graphically demonstrated that we're selling them at a discounted rate. And then in the sales and staircasing, I am still making them behave like an outright sale unit. I'm selling them at 100%.
Yeah.
So therefore, because the first homes is an outright sale, it's just at a discounted value. So
open that sales section so we can see the value going into it.
Yeah. So in the sales section, you can see 140,000 coming in, 210. And just they would then behave like effectively an outright sale unit or market sale unit, whatever you'd like to call it. But I can graphically demonstrate to whoever's wanting to know how do I achieve that. Effectively, I've got, it was originally at 200,000 and it's now selling at 140,000 or whatever it happens to be. It's just a different way or different approach of visualizing what it is we're doing. It's an outright sale unit with a discounted value. What's the discounted value? Or it's effectively a type, a shared ownership of with a different label called First Homes, and we're selling or selling 70% with no rent. Two different approaches. Financially in the appraisal, they're going to have the same effect. It's just what kind of visualization do I want to give my team? Sorry for that.
No, yeah, that's good.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Paul. And okay, so we've got about 5 minutes left. If anyone has any further questions, I did see someone had a question. Was it Sam Watt? You had your hand up. Sam, is your question addressed, or is it still there? Please do let us know. Anyone else? Does anyone else want to throw anything at Andrew and John and Paul while we're here?
Oh, just one quick question. Sorry, just popped into my mind. For those of you who are switching to the single cash flow model, please do make sure that you set your MPV and your discount things at the right value. So Andrew will demonstrate now in the start section, you've got loans. Yeah. Just the same as we had before. On the very end column, you have to then tell it when to start that loan. So typically you're going to start at the cash flow start. That's a new column. And in section A under MPV, there's a new row. And you need to tell it when you're going to start your MPV calculation from. And in section I, the long-term results, you've got to do it there as well. This is just for somebody who's moved across to the single cash flow from the old dual cash flow one. Make sure, please, that otherwise your results will not be the same or similar or close to what you had before. So effectively, you're running everything from cash flow start when you're looking at financial results. So there are a couple of sections you need to do that. It should be set in your default. So when your administrator set up the new templates, so that anybody who's converted to the single cash flow model, the templates and the unit libraries need to be looked at and recreated, because effectively we've added extra questions in which weren't there before. It should have been taken care of, but if it hasn't been, then please do ask the question of your ProVal administrator.
Thank you very much, Paul. John, we'll go to you, and then I'm going to go to another question.
Okay, just before I lose the opportunity to speak to the multitudes, I just want to share something I came across the other day with a customer when we were dealing with the detail of shared ownership. And I was a bit surprised by it myself, but basically we had a customer where shared ownership, they put in an assumption for staircasing that the units would staircase to 100% by year 25, which was a bit exceptional. They were actually looking at the performance of the tenures over 45 years. Now, what surprised me was when we took the staircasing out, because STS take the view that staircasing is the icing on the cake when it happens, and we shouldn't presume it's going to happen. But when we took that staircasing out, we actually had a better NPV result on the shared ownership, because that shared ownership was going to be around for longer and was going to contribute more rent over a longer period than just having the capital receipt by year 25. And I think it was also an eye-opener for the customer as well, because very often people assume by putting staircasing in it's going to be better. It was a general surprise. So don't always assume that staircasing is going to make things better. And also, if you are going to put it in, have you got a reasoned history of why you're putting that assumption in? So I'll just put that out there for people. And if I'm being very detailed at the moment, the other thing with shared ownership is some people are saying, I won't have any voids and bad debts on shared ownership because under the terms of the lease, it is recoverable either at staircasing or point of sale. And that's the end of my Anorak interlude.
That's good. Yeah,
right. Just to add to that one, John, I've seen staircasing set after the NPV time. So in your example, you said NPV to 45 years. I've seen people put in staircasing from 50 to 60. Well, that's not going to affect the results in the slightest, but it's effectively beyond the realms of the appraisal. So you've got to just be sensible with what you're doing if you do have to put staircasing in.
I think also one of the things that people obviously know that we are rewriting ProVal into the cloud. Okay, and we'll welcome any kind of comments from our clients on little things that they may think that will be good. One of the things that we're working on is once we have a mixed tenure in here, like we have here, and you've got different timings on different units, therefore you have to kind of use the year position to break things down. Like, you know, here we've got 1 to 5, and we're following the same kind of pattern for these units, but these units might be slightly different. We're going to change this view. Okay, so the product is, you don't have to break it down to copy it over in this view. So it will, its own tenure, its own unit will have its own string without you duplicating it and having the same amount because you've broken it down. Yeah, does that make sense? So this one here will be maybe 650, this one could be 750, but you'll have to copy it over to them to have that breakdown. We're going to do away with that. So each unit can have its own set without duplicating it across other tenures. Yeah. So, and that will kind of impact on kind of rents, isn't it? Once you're kind of have different rent settings like this, you copying it over the same structure because one of them might be slightly different. That'll be a lot cleaner and nicer in the newer version.
We've got a question which is about rent to home buy. How many will sell at the end of year 5? Well, rent to home buy basically gives you a transfer duration of years 1 to 10, basically, or whatever you choose in terms of being that butterfly tenure that transfers from being a caterpillar to a butterfly. And your organization has actually got to make a reasoned decision itself how many it thinks will transfer of that tenure in what time frame. It's not for us to dictate that. It's actually, you've got to look at the tenure opportunities that are being offered to you by Homes England, etc. Look at the rules of the game and actually say, what's a cautious approach? And if it performs better than this, then we're fortunate. But what's the cautious approach in terms of a transitioning tenure such as rent to home buy? There isn't any strict guidance as to how many should sell. I know, looking at the London example of rent to home buy, if somebody doesn't take up the purchase option, some London providers are saying, well, you've missed your opportunity and we need a new resident to come in here. And so you only get that intermediate rent for a certain period of time before another potential purchaser is introduced to the property. So the transition from rent to shared ownership in rent to home buy has got to be a reasoned approach by your organisation as you take that tenure on.
So it's a pretty strong policy, John, is effectively what you're saying here.
Yeah, and I don't know the other guys, but I haven't actually seen a large uptake of rent to home buy by customers.
There's a few. There has been a few.
I've seen most of the ones I've seen, everybody in real life where they've put real numbers to it, they're worse off than shared ownership, or worse off than affordable.
A lot of the private guys are doing it, aren't they? So they're doing it like I've got here, 1 to 5 years, and then selling it, and then a product is 1 to 10 years, and then another product is 1 to 15 years. And whether they want to do something different on the rents to hold back money, etc., etc. But I know there's Halo, I think, are offering that, and there's a client that we're doing some modelling on that. And what part of the modelling that we did on that one is sharing the rent. So therefore, you can go into the rent allowances part here, and then we can use a management agent at % of rent, and this bit can be shared. So the RP is getting some of the rent, and so is the private equity investor is getting some of the rent as well, and we can use this setting here to do that. And it's something I'm modelling kind of next week with the client, actually. So it can be done. It's just kind of breaking it down and understanding the kind of structure of it. But that is rent to buy over 5 years, 10 years, and 15 years, and sharing the rent over that period, and then the equity as well. So the RP gets some of the equity, and then the lease provider or private company gets some of the equity as well. So we can show that as well. I think it's done by Halo. I think it's Halo, the company is that do it. That's
Well, we've come to an end. It's 11:03.
Oh yeah.
I think people are going off to meetings. Our attendance seems to be dwindling a little. John, butterfly tenure. I quite like that. You made that up yourself, didn't you? That term. You could also consider amphibian tender, maybe. Is that tender?
Before, can I say before everyone goes away, and I must say that Chris, thank you so much for all your help of setting this and organising this. It takes a lot of work and dedication and you know, putting things together. So I really do appreciate it. And it's been fun over the last 2 or 3 years that we've done this, well, over lockdown, and continuing it. So for that, we're definitely going to be sorely missed. Enjoy your new job. And so thank you so much for your effort on this. And
thank you from all of us.
Thanks a lot. I'm on LinkedIn. If you want to sort of keep up with me, I'm actually moving to View City. And it's actually very complementary to SGS, and we may be partnering in the future. But it's like Sim City for real, except
it's architecture practice, isn't it? So it's architecture.
Yeah, it's planning. So I'm moving from the development conversation more into the planning conversation. But thanks a lot. Like I said, it's been nothing but a privilege. You know, 4 years ago, I knew absolutely nothing about any of this. I still know very little. But it's been a pleasure even just to have some sort of part in this conversation, even if it's just chairing experts. So yeah, thank you very much, everyone. And yeah, hopefully we will cross paths in the future. And let's just hope this summer sort of tames down a little.
Okay, everybody.
Thanks, Paul.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.